Yesterday, Brandon and I kicked off a 2-week mini-series here at Madison called He Will Be Called. And this whole series is based off a text in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. Now, the context is incredibly important because what's happening here in Isaiah 9 is that King Ahaz is extremely worried because right outside of his kingdom, the Assyrian army is getting ready to attack. And so the thing that he thinks that he needs to do is to make an alliance with some other country. Now, we looked at that and how at times we can be just like Ahaz. The thing that we think we need to do is to make an alliance with something of this world. And part of the reason why we make that choice is because even though we might know of what God has told us, we still like control and it's hard for us to relinquish it. Or maybe it's because, yes, we hear the promise of God, but it's hard when things get difficult, when we go through a struggle, to have faith in those times. And so it's in the middle of this fearful, troublesome situation that Isaiah lets Ahaz know, listen, you don't have to make an alliance. God is going to give you a sign, and he's going to give you a son. And you would have thought that would have been enough for him, but just like Ahaz, we sometimes won't relinquish that control, and we won't fully step into those places of faith. And so Isaiah says, this is who he's going to be. In verse 6, he says, unto us a child is going to be born, and he's going to be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to focus on 2 of those. Brandon's going to focus on the other 2 next week. But I was going to focus on Wonderful Counselor and Mighty God. And we spent a lot of time talking about him being the Wonderful Counselor. And what's neat about him being a Wonderful Counselor is those 2 words defined, wonderful and counselor, mean a lot. The word wonderful means that it's even hard to describe who he is. You can't really even put it into words. And then counselor means that he's not just somebody who instructs, guides, and advises, but he has the power to do something about it. I mean, think about that. Maybe you had a friend that you call in the middle of the night as you go through a difficult time. They incline a listening ear, and that means the world to you. But still at the end of the day, that even though they give you grace and love through that listening ear, they still don't have maybe the power at times to do something about that need. By him being that counselor, he's saying, I don't just instruct you and guide you and listen to you, but I have the power to do something about it. So how can we maximize the potential and the power that is there of Wonderful Counselor? Well, we talked about 3 things yesterday. One of those things is just like a counselor here on this earth, you have to be honest. You can't fully move on to and into a place of healing if you're not first honest. And I think the reason why we aren't honest at times is because of what that honesty might require of us. It might make us have to talk about something that is incredibly hard, but that is the beginning to the path of healing. But the second thing that we have talked about yesterday is we have to actually want to be made well. That sounds like a funny thing to say. Well, who wouldn't want to be made well? Well, sometimes we like the idea of being made well, but we don't like the change that would require of us to actually be made well. It's kind of like in John 5 when Jesus asked that guy that was laying on the mat, do you want to get better? Well, you would think, yeah, of course he wants to get better. But what Jesus was saying was, are you willing to trust me? Are you willing to go through this process, this walk with me? Sometimes we want the external circumstances fixed, but not really maybe the heart fixed. But the final thing that we talked about too, that is also difficult, but also the path to the healing from that Wonderful Counselor, is that just like a counselor on this earth, we have to do what they say. That he gives counsel all throughout Scripture that may seem odd to us, but it's when we step into that counsel that we see he knew exactly what it was that he was talking about. So my action step I gave you yesterday was these 3 things: to be honest, to listen, and then to do what he says. And to first be honest with yourself or maybe someone else about the struggle you have. But then when the listening and the doing what it says part comes into play, I told you to look up a scripture. Maybe if you get online and type in a Bible verse about blank, and that blank being whatever it is that is your struggle. Maybe it's something that's private. Maybe it's a sin that nobody knows about, a struggle that nobody knows about, or it is maybe something everybody does. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. To look up different Bible verses about that very thing, listen to it, but then do what it says and notice the change that will come from our Wonderful Counselor. We serve an awesome, mighty God. We serve a Wonderful Counselor, an Everlasting Father, and a Prince of Peace. I pray that will carry you this week and give you a lot of encouragement. But I encourage you, if you want to reach that full potential in your own life, take that counselor's advice and do exactly what he says.